I was 17 the night my life split in two, before and after. Our parents left for a weekend trip to Portland. Dad packed the car, Mom double-checked the front door, and my little brother Luca clung to their legs like a koala. "Be good, Elena," Mom had said, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "Keep him out of trouble. Don't forget my souvenir." Luca yelled as they walked down the driveway. We waved until their car turned the corner and disappeared into the trees. That was the last time we saw them. 2 days later, I stood on our porch, staring at my phone with trembling hands. It was past midnight. No calls, no messages. They said they'd be back by 8. I whispered to myself again and again. My voice sounded foreign, thin, like paper. Luca, only 5 at the time, had fallen asleep on the couch waiting for them. His head rested on one of Dad's hoodies. I didn't want to wake him. I didn't want to explain something I didn't understand myself. I called them again, voicemail. Then I called the motel. "Sorry," the man said on the other end. No one by that name checked in this weekend. I felt the ground shift. The police came in the morning. They asked standard questions. When had we last seen them? Were there arguments? Financial trouble? Enemies? I wanted to scream. My parents weren't the type of people who just vanished. They were responsible, predictable, ordinary. But the more I answered, the more I could see it on their faces. They didn't have answers either. The next few days were a blur of adults and whispers. "We're doing all we can," one officer said, avoiding my eyes. "Do you have any relatives we can contact?" asked a woman from Child Services. "No, elite." Because I knew exactly who they'd call, Aunt Meredith in Ohio. A woman who barely spoke to Mom and hated kids. I wasn't going to let them take Luca. Not him, not now. That night, while he slept curled against me like a kitten, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. If no one could find our parents, I would become one. The first morning without them felt like standing in an empty theater after the show had ended. No music. No lights, just silence. I burned the pancakes. Luca didn't complain. "Where's Mom?" he finally asked, syrup dripping from his chin. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "She got delayed. But she'll be back. I promise." A lie, but a necessary one. He nodded and went back to eating. That crushed me more than the question. I started waking up earlier to make his lunch, brushed his hair, walked him to kindergarten. I kept the house clean, checked the mail, took the trash out, paid the bills with Mom's emergency savings. Every day, I rehearsed what I'd say if someone came knocking. "Yes, our parents are fine." "No, we don't need help, just a little delay. Everything's under control." But every night, when Luca was asleep, I would break. Cry in the dark, holding one of Mom's sweaters to my face. Just for a little smell. Just to remember. One night, maybe 2 weeks in, I heard soft footsteps. "Elena." Luca's voice was small. I wiped my face quickly. "What's wrong?" He climbed into bed next to me. "I had a dream," he whispered. "That Mommy got lost in the clouds and couldn't come down." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "She'll find her way back." He laid his head on my chest. "But what if she doesn't?" Then came the words that would haunt me for months. "Will you be my mommy now?" I nodded, heartbreaking in ways I didn't know were possible. "Yes, baby. I will." And I meant it. Lying became a second language. It started with small things, telling Luca that Mom and Dad were just busy, telling the school they were on a trip, telling the bank that the check was in the mail. But then the letters started coming. Final notice, overdue, past due. And I realized, lies don't pay the electric bill. I got a part-time job at the corner store 3 blocks away. I told Mr. Grady, the owner, that I was 18. He barely looked up from the newspaper. "You got ID?" he asked. "No. I lost it," I said quickly. He studied me for a second, then shrugged. "You'll be paid cash. No complaints, no questions." I nodded, trying not to let my hands shake. "Don't mess this up, Elena. You're all he has." Every shift, I left Luca with Mrs. Lynn, our elderly neighbor who thought I was babysitting my own brother while our parents worked out of town. She didn't ask questions. She liked the company, and Luca loved her banana muffins. It worked, for now. Still, I lived in fear. Fear that someone would figure it out. That a letter would arrive I couldn't explain. That a neighbor would call Child Services. So I kept everything tight, controlled, fake smiles. Excuses. Some nights, when Luca was asleep and the world felt a little too sharp, I'd go into Mom's closet and just sit there. Surrounded by her smell, her scarves, her shoes. "Where are you?" I'd whisper. And I'd wait in the dark. But silence was the only reply. 3 months in, I got called into the school. "Miss Morales," the principal said, adjusting her glasses. "We're concerned. Luke has been distracted lately. Drawing. Disturbing pictures." I blinked. "Pictures?" She slid one across the desk. It showed a house with no roof. A little boy sitting alone under storm clouds. "No sun.no parents. Kids express trauma differently," she added gently. "If there's anything going on at home." "There isn't," I interrupted too fast. "They'll be back soon. He's just sensitive." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. I walked out of that office shaking, the drawing still in my hand. It felt like evidence, like proof that I was failing him. That night, I made his favorite dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs sliced like octopuses. He giggled when I served it. "Remember when Dad burned the mac and cheese?" he asked. "Yeah," I smiled. He tried to blame the microwave. "Mom laughed so hard," she cried. We were both quiet for a moment. Then he looked up. "Are they ever coming back?" My chest tightened as I looked into his eyes, those big, searching eyes, and I wanted to tell the truth. To say, I don't know that I'm scared too. But I couldn't. "I think so," I said instead. He nodded. "I just don't want you to leave too." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm not going anywhere," I promised. And I meant it, even if it meant building a world of lies just to keep him safe. But the thing about lies is that they grow roots. They wrap around your life, your choices, your future. And eventually they come knocking. One evening, I came home from work and found a woman in a navy blazer standing on our porch. "Hello. Are you Elena Morales?" My stomach dropped as I froze mid-step. "Yes," I said slowly. She smiled in that polite, professional way that made my skin crawl. "My name is Claire Beckett. I'm from Family and Child Services." The world tilted beneath my feet. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times, what I would say, how I'd explain it all. But in real life, my mouth went dry. "I'm sorry," I said. "My parents aren't home right now." Claire Beckett glanced down at her clipboard. "We received a tip from the school. Concerns about Luca's guardianship status. We've made multiple attempts to contact your parents, but their numbers are disconnected." I swallowed hard. "That's because they're out of the country. It's temporary. Do you have documentation? A notarized guardianship form?" I froze. That's when I realized I had nothing. No paper trail. No legal right to my own brother. "I'll need to speak with both of you," she continued. "Preferably in the presence of a legal guardian." "I am his guardian." I snapped, then caught myself. My voice had cracked. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Elena, you're a minor. Almost 18. She didn't smile. "I'll need to file a welfare report. For Luca's safety." That phrase, "for his safety," hit me like a slap. How could anyone believe I was a threat to him? "He's fine," I said, almost whispering. "I've done everything for him. He's safe with me." She gave me a gentle look, the kind people reserve for fragile things. "We're not here to punish you. But there are rules, Elena. If your parents are missing, we need to follow protocol." She handed me a card and walked away. And I stood there, still silent, like the world had just cracked open beneath my feet. I barely slept that night, that I sat beside Luca's bed, just watching him breathe. Every time he shifted in his sleep, I reached out, as if someone might try to take him away in the dark. At one point, he stirred and opened his eyes. "Elena," he murmured. "Shoo," I said, stroking his hair. "Go back to sleep, baby." "Are you crying?" "No, Elite. Just tired." The next morning, I made a decision. I forged a document, a fake letter from our parents giving me temporary guardianship. I printed it on old letterhead Dad had saved on his laptop. Signed their names in Mom's neat cursive. It was the dirtiest thing I've ever done, and I hated myself for it. But when I handed it to Claire 3 days later, she looked it over, then nodded. "For now, this will suffice. But if anything else surfaces." I smiled, polite, grateful, dying inside. "Thank you," I said. But it wasn't over. Not even close. 2 weeks later, someone broke into our house. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I'd taken Luca to the park, just a quick escape. When we got home, the front door was ajar. I stopped mid-step. "Stay here." I told Luca. My voice was calm, but my heartbeat wasn't. The living room was a mess, drawers open, papers scattered. Nothing valuable gone, just torn pages, files, Mom's notebooks, a box of old bills. Like someone had been searching for something. I called the police. They filed a report, said it was probably random. But I knew better. Someone had been looking for our parents, and they thought I was hiding something. That night, I locked every door and window. I moved a chair in front of Luca's door. Slept on the hallway floor like a soldier. I couldn't protect him from the system. I couldn't protect him from the truth. But I could protect him from whoever came through that door. Even if it meant losing sleep. Losing myself. One evening after dinner, he came to me with a drawing. It was the three of us, me, him, and our parents, all holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "You drew this?" I asked, touched. "Yeah," he said. "But I made one change." "What's that?" He pointed to the girl in the middle. "That's you. But I made your shirt say Mom." I stared at it. The lines were messy. The colors bled outside the borders. But it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "I love it," I whispered. And for one brief second, I believed I could keep doing this. Even if it meant fighting the whole world. The storm came quietly, not with thunder, but with a letter in a white envelope. I found it wedged between grocery flyers in our mailbox. The return address, Child Protective Services. My hands trembled as I opened it. A case has been reopened regarding the guardianship of Luca Morales. I didn't read the rest that I didn't need to. Someone had reported us. Again. I didn't cry this time. Instead, I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. My face looked older, not in the way birthdays do, but in the way grief carves itself into your bones. I had done everything. Lied, worked, cooked, comforted, shielded. And now it was all slipping. I thought about running. Really running. Packing a bag, grabbing Luca, disappearing into some other city. But then I remembered what Claire Beckett said the first time. If anything else surfaces. This wasn't a second chance. This was the final warning. That night, I told Luca we were going to have a sleepover in the living room. He thought it was fun, popcorn, movies, blankets on the floor. I watched him laugh at cartoons, completely unaware of the fact that someone somewhere was planning to take him away from me. "Can we do this every Friday?" he asked. I smiled. "We'll see." What I really meant was I don't know how many Fridays we have left. The next morning, Claire returned. But this time, she wasn't alone. 2 officers waited on the sidewalk, arms crossed. A social worker stood beside her, clipboard in hand. I opened the door and blocked the entrance with my body. "Elena," Claire said softly. "We need to talk." "No." I said that my voice was shaking, but I held my ground. "Please. He's okay. I'm taking care of him. You don't understand." "We do understand," she interrupted. "And that's why we're here." "I'm not giving him up," I said louder this time. Behind me, I heard footsteps, Luca coming down the hallway. "Elena," he called out, confused. "Who are they?" I turned quickly. "Go to your room, sweetheart. It's okay." But he didn't move. He just stood there, frozen. Claire stepped forward. "You're not in trouble. But we need to verify his safety. There's a temporary placement arranged." "No," I said. "You're not taking him." "Elena, no." Then I felt it point 2 strong hands on my arms. One of the officers stepping in. Gently but firmly. Luca screamed. "Elena!" I tried to reach for him, but they held me back. He was crying now, fighting the social worker's grasp. "Elena, don't let them take me. Please." That scream, that sound, it tore something inside me I don't think will ever heal. I spent that night in a sterile office with fluorescent lights and cold chairs. They questioned me. Every detail. Where I worked. How I paid rent. Why I forged documents. I didn't lie anymore. I told them everything. Every raw, desperate, painful truth. I expected them to arrest me. Maybe they should have. But instead, Claire just listened. She didn't interrupt. Didn't scold. Just listened. When I finished, she leaned forward and said, "You're one of the strongest girls I've ever met." And then, "But strength isn't enough when the law is against you." I went home alone. The silence hit me like a punch. Luca's drawings were still taped to the fridge. His little sneakers by the door. The blanket he always dragged around like a cape. I sat on the floor and cried for hours. 3 days passed. No calls. No visits. I felt like I was grieving a death. Except this time, I was the one still breathing. On the 4th day, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Claire was standing there, and behind her was Luca. He ran into my arms before I could speak. "Miss Morales," Claire said, "we've reviewed your case. Given your age, circumstances, and the fact that you've demonstrated exceptional care and stability, we're filing an emergency petition to grant you temporary custody legally." I couldn't believe it, that I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. "This isn't permanent," she added, "but it's a start, and it means he stays. With you." I nodded through the tears. Thank you so much." Luca looked up at me. You didn't let them take me, he said, hugging tighter. No, I whispered, holding him close. Never. Getting temporary custody was supposed to fix everything. It didn't. It just gave us breathing room. I had to appear in court every few weeks, sit in front of a judge, explain our life like it was a checklist: stability, finances, emotional wellness. Do you have a full-time job? No, I'm still finishing high school. Who helps with childcare? Mrs. Lynn, our neighbor. How are you paying rent? I took over my parents' bank account. There's a small savings. Every answer felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong word, and everything could come crashing down. But I showed up. Every time, clean clothes, paperwork in hand, hair tied back, ready. Because giving up wasn't an option. Outside the courtroom, I was still just his sister. Still making pancakes that burned. Still fighting with internet bills. Still leaving love notes in his lunchbox that read, "You're brave. You're kind. You're my favorite person." He'd come home smiling. One Friday night, we were brushing our teeth, both in pajamas, standing side by side at the sink. Luca turned to me, toothpaste dripping down his chin. Hey, Elena. If you get tired of being my mom, can you go back to just being my sister? I paused, caught off guard. What do you mean? He shrugged. Sometimes I miss when you were just fun. You know, before. It hit me harder than I expected. I smiled softly. I miss her too. Then I leaned down and kissed the top of his head. But I'll always be both. Sister. Mom. Whatever you need. He nodded, satisfied. Cool. Can I have ice cream tomorrow? Absolutely not. We both laughed. Summer came. I picked up more shifts at the store. Graduated early. Enrolled in night classes at the community college. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't care. Every test passed, every dollar saved, it all meant we were still standing. Still together. One evening, we were walking home from school, Luca holding my hand like he used to when he was little. He was 7 now, growing fast, asking big questions. Do you think Mom and Dad are still alive? I swallowed hard. That question never stopped hurting. I don't know, I answered honestly. I hope so. But I also hope that wherever they are, they know we're okay. He nodded slowly. Then he looked up at me. I think you're better than both of them put together. I stopped walking. What? You make dinner, you go to work, you do the dishes and the laundry. You help me with math, even though you're really bad at math. I laughed through the tears that came anyway. He squeezed my hand. You're the best family I've ever had. That night, I pulled out a shoebox I hadn't opened in a year. Inside were old photos, receipts, printed emails. Clues. Fragments of the people we once waited for. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Or confusion. Or desperation. Just peace. I knew they might never come back. And maybe. That was okay. Because we had built something new. From nothing, from pain. A family. I went into Luca's room and watched him sleep, just like I had that first night. Only now, his room was full of life, books, drawings, stuffed animals, trophies he made out of cereal boxes. He was growing. And so was I. 2 years passed. That's the strange thing about time. When you're surviving, you don't feel it moving, but suddenly you look up and everything's changed. Luca turned 9 this year. He's taller now, faster, full of opinions about everything, food, video games, how the world works. But sometimes I still catch glimpses of that little boy who once begged me not to let them take him. Like the way he still falls asleep hugging his blanket. Or how he always checks if I'm still home when he comes back from school. As for me, I'm 20 now. I got my associate's degree last spring. I still work part-time at the store, but now I also do online tutoring. I'm saving, slowly, for a better apartment. For Luca's future, for mine. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. I remember thinking back then that being a mother meant perfection. That I had to cook the right meals, say the right things, always be calm, always know the answer. But motherhood, real motherhood, is messier than that. It's sleepless nights and takeout dinners. It's helping with a science project at midnight. It's crying quietly in the shower so they don't see you fall apart. And it's worth it. Every single moment. One day, Luca came home with an assignment. Write about someone who changed your life. He gave me the paper without saying a word. Just dropped it on the kitchen table and walked off like it was nothing. I didn't expect much. But when I read it, I couldn't breathe. The person who changed my life is my sister Elena. She's not just my sister. She's my everything. She never gave up on me, even when it was hard. Even when she was scared. She made me feel safe. She made me feel loved. And no matter what, I know she'll always be there. Because she chose me. I cried. Not the silent, sad kind of crying, but the full, heaving kind, the kind that cleans something deep inside you. Because for so long, I didn't think I was enough. Not old enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. But I was. Our parents were never found. No notes.no leads. Just a cold case in a file drawer somewhere. People always ask if I still hope they'll come back. And the truth is, I don't think about that much anymore. Not because I don't care, but because we've already built something whole in the space they left behind. We've created new holidays, new routines, new laughter, new love. Sometimes I catch myself watching Luca when he isn't looking. When he's reading on the couch, his brow furrowed just like Dad's used to. Or when he dances in the kitchen while I cook, just like Mom. And I smile, because we carry them, still in small ways. But we're not waiting anymore. We're growing, living, becoming, together. I never thought I'd be enough. But I was, and I am. And if you're reading this, wondering if you could survive the unimaginable, let me tell you something. You can.